Hey everyone, welcome to the Evolution of Search 2024. I don't know about all of you, but I cannot believe that 2024 is just over a month away. That still feels like it should be a lot longer from now, but alas, here we are, and I am so happy to be joined by this extremely smart and talented and capable and fun group of panelists from SEJ. I should have started by introducing myself. I, myself, am Amanda Zantel Weiner, editor-in-chief here at SEJ, and I'm joined by panelists Ben Steele, Matt Southern, and Shelley Walsh, who I am very proud and lucky to call colleagues. I will give each of you a moment to introduce yourselves before we start jumping into questions. I'll start with Ben.
Hi, sorry, go on, Ben.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben, and I do ebooks here at SEJ. I manage and produce our ebook products, and I've been doing SEO for industry inside or adjacent for going on 8 or so years. I think I've been a writer, a link builder, an editor, and now I build ebooks. So yay! Hope you're all having a good day.
And you build ebooks so well.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, Matt, if we're going in alphabetical order, I'm just going to go to you, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Southern here. I'm the senior news writer at Search Engine Journal, and I'm so glad you're all here today for our webinar on the evolution of search in 2024. I've been immersed in the SEO world for over a decade. I started doing SEO for businesses day in and day out before transitioning to covering the latest news and industry trends. Reporting on SEO for the past 10 years, my specialty is distilling even the most complicated topics into digestible takeaways. And let me tell you, after the whirlwind of changes we saw this past year, I understand how overwhelming it all can be.
I mean, we had that extremely intense, weekend when the OpenAI board drama happened. I mean, My goodness, you and our other news writer, Christy, things move quickly. If nothing else, that weekend showed us oh yeah, this industry moves really fast. But last, but certainly not least, I will now have Shelley introduce herself.
Thank you, Amanda. With Walsh as a surname, I can assure you I've been last in the line of everything all my life from being a small child at school, so I'm quite used to it. Hi, I'm Shelley. I am the SEO content strategist at SEJ. I've been here for 3.5 years. I've been in the SEO industry for about 13, 14 years. Before that, I've got about 25 years creative marketing, business, and SEO experience. I also actually run SEO Pioneers, a podcast, YouTube series where I interview some of the industry's smartest people who've helped to found the industry. And actually at SEJ, I also help to run the contributor program. So I'm quite heavily involved in the SEO community.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelley. And also end of the alphabet, recognize end of the alphabet, Z. Name mama named me. So I preach and empathies. All right. Are we ready to dive into a discussion and some questions?
Let's
go.
It's been an exhausting few weeks, so let's get started.
Oh boy, that's the right kind of energy to go into this webinar with.
Exhausting few weeks, Ben. It's been an exhausting 2023. It started with a whirlwind and it has not stopped.
Yeah. How many simultaneous updates were we dealing with just a few weeks ago?
I don't actually know where I
January.
No. Where are we? Are we in a webinar? Are we on space? I see all of our lovely participants are coming from all over the world. So as far as I know, I could be in any one of these places. So yes, just a reminder that you can submit questions as well if you are watching. But I'm just going to kick things off real quick with some questions that I have been dying to ask our panelists. So, all right, Shelley, my girl, I got to ask you about SGE.
Okay.
I mean, it's top of mind because I just saw a thread today about how, and we don't have to talk about this, but somebody uncovered a patent on Twitter that basically explains how SGE works, but that's a conversation for another day. For now, what I want to ask you is, how are these features like SGE going to change how we optimize for search engine results?
Yes, Amanda, it's nice to be first for once. Thank you. I think that search generative SGE, search generative experience, certainly has had quite an impact in the last few months since it was introduced. And oh my God, there has been so much panic about how this is going to impact, and the drama online, the usual drama that we experience, is it's going to take away clicks, it's going to take away search volume. But what we really need to remember here is that Google is not going to cannibalize its own business. It needs brands and it needs content. At the moment, Google is very much still in experimentation mode. When people talk about zero-click SERPs and this whole idea that, Google wants to be this destination, but Google does not want to be the destination. They're not going to destroy their own business model. Their business model relies on driving users to the best pages of content. And Google is never going to work without web pages. It needs content producers, it needs websites, it needs brands. There's always going to be some anomalies where zero-click SERPs do appear, and that does happen, but that is not Google's aim. So, Google really wants to provide better and better experiences, which is why they're developing. It's why they're adding layers of machine learning. It's why they're introducing generative AI. They just want to keep evolving their product. If we think about SGE, really, I think ultimately it's a bit like a featured snippet on steroids. And if we go back, think about, say, for example, when Hummingbird first dropped, and then carousels were introduced, and then we had snippets and knowledge panels. And every time each one of those happened, we first started out with 10 blue links, and then each time a new feature was introduced, the SEO community went wild, and it was like, oh my God, it's going to be the end of everything. But what did we do? We adapted and we worked with it. And actually, in the end, search and SERPs became better for it. One thing I do know about SGE is, I know obviously a patent has dropped today, and I have to admit I haven't actually read that yet. But SGE, it's not entirely, from my understanding, it's not entirely AI generated. And what I actually mean by that is it's actually looks at a summary of the best results in the SERP. So it's not like it takes the entire web and makes a summary, but it takes the best results. And I think if you understand that and recognize that, and then it uses AI to, to create a combined summary of those results. So what this actually means for us and for SEOs is that we need to ensure, more than ever, we need to ensure that we are in those top results. And I think for SEO, that means that we really need to start being the source of data and information and providing something that's very unique and valuable. And I think this is what is actually going to be the challenge in this post-generative AI world that we're moving into. It's making sure you're the source and that you're getting cited. I think people seem to think SGE is going to replace search, but I don't see it as a replacement. I actually see it as an evolution. And I think what's really important is that we get away from this mindset of prescriptive SEO and thinking that you can do SEO by numbers or that there's a cheat code. I actually wrote about this recently where people seem to think that there's some shortcut. But I think what SGE really highlights is that, Google is continuing its experimentation. And, I think this is the area where the areas we really need to be focusing on as well is that user signals are applied in search results. And, this was confirmed recently in released documents. And, Google's desire is to provide the very best answers to a query. And machine learning and generative AI is how it is applying that and how it keeps refining. So with SGE, SERPs are going to become more and more personalized. We're moving more into filter bubbles, and intent and user satisfaction is what is going to really matter. And I think where we really need to be focusing on is that area. So to be able to adapt with SGE, I think about, as I said, being the source of data, and also to encompass the user signals. Think about basic psychology. What is it that people want? So when they're scanning the results, you want to be the name that people want to click on. So, building a name in the industry and building brand presence is going to be even more important. Brand reputation. I think social media marketing and search are actually becoming more blended, and I think SG is going to reflect this. So building that brand reputation so you become more recognizable in SERPs. I think all these things are, what is going to help moving forward in this post generative AI situation we have.
Yeah. Oh. I muted myself so that you wouldn't have to listen to me hacking up my lung, and apparently I couldn't unmute myself. But hello, thank you so much. That was an extremely thorough insight, Shelley. And so, one of the big takeaways that I'm getting from that is that, AI and SEO clearly do not need to exist at odds. They can coexist, they can complement each other, they can work with each other. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on integrating things like AI tools into SEO, into content marketing, and what are they, and how would we use
them? Okay, so my opinion on tools, tools are tools, and tools are not going to overtake the world necessarily how we think they are. Okay, just backpedaling from that a bit. I was actually at an event a few weeks ago, quite an event with some very, very smart people. And the general perception, I had some really interesting conversations with some very smart people at this event. And the whole perception there is that AI is actually way too powerful in the hands of novices. I think AI is, particularly ChatGPT and Bard, I don't think we can even grasp how intelligent it actually is. And at the moment we're running to keep up, to train, to learn how to use it. Out of the box, generative AI, it's not user friendly for a novice to use. It actually needs a lot of work to get the best results out of it. It's like using a fire hose to try and make a cup of tea. So to get the best results out of these tools like ChatGPT and Bard, you need a lot of sophisticated prompting. And one of my recommendations, I think, for how you can achieve this is using a two-way dialogue feedback loop. And what I mean by this is layering and chaining prompts and keep feeding those results back into the AI so you're constantly refining your results. One of the biggest issues that I've experienced with ChatGPT is, and I'm sure as everybody knows, is when it gets things wrong. And, we don't know is when do we know? It's knowing when it's wrong that's the most important thing for us to understand. So if we can actually train the LMM to be self-aware of what it doesn't know, this is going to start to help it to refine its own output. And these are really the areas to work on with just constant experimentation and iteration. I see AI, I think it's an amazing assistant. And I think it's amazing how it can be used and integrated to actually support your day-to-day productivity. The creative possibilities they're absolutely exponential. We're not even fully close to harnessing what it can do. But I think on a day-to-day basis, look at like it's supporting in, it's like the perfect editorial assistant. It can create images, it can infographics, it can sort data into tables, it can summarize thoughts, it can create transcripts, find inconsistencies in reports, scan vast tracts of data, etc. It is the perfect complement for like knowledge and creativity. But don't fall into the trap. I think some people are thinking that AI can be used to actually replace and to actually do SEO and write content. But I think this is a real trap to fall into. It needs expertise, and this is what I'm saying. It's a tool. It needs expertise and experience to operate this machine to get the best results out of it. I actually really liken AI development, what's been happening, as a bit like the early days in the computer industry. I think at first when computers came out, people didn't really understand it, and they were trying to use it like a typewriter, right? So they were just trying to replicate what they'd done on an old tool. And I think this is where we've been at until, people started to really push the edges with a computer, and they realized it could do spreadsheets and it could do graphical representations. And this really changed their mindset. And I think this is where we are at the moment with AI, particularly in SEO industry, is, this process of development and we are shifting our mindsets. We need to just keep pushing it at the edges and stop trying to use it necessarily to do what we've done before, but actually look at it to leverage its capabilities in a new way. I think this is kind of like the complicated way why we're trying to understand how to do sophisticated and prompt engineering. So, I would just say that I think content strategists are the ones who are going to benefit from using the tool and using it to support themselves with their tasks that they're doing every day. And I think it's going to be critical to learn how to use AI to be ultimately efficient. But at the end of the day, don't forget that AI can't replace ideas and creativity. I think, it's humans that are driving the machines, and that's what we still add the value. Treat it as a tool. Don't try to replace what we're doing. Just use it as a tool to support what you're doing.
I think you're muted, Amanda.
I should just stop muting myself. Muting myself is such an ordeal. Well, that's really interesting. And, I would love to get Ben and Matt, your thoughts on this as well, because, we have conversations internally about how, as a publisher, with, in terms of, while maintaining our sort of editorial integrity when it comes to AI, which I will let everybody individually define what that means to them or leave it up to audience interpretation. But we talk about how we can use AI internally for some of our efforts, and clearly what Shelley said, that can include some SEO. It doesn't replace the human work on SEO, but I'm curious to get your thoughts, on what Shelley has said.
Yeah, I think that I'd like to briefly backtrack to what we were talking about with the search generative experience, right? And that I think that it's an extension of, as you mentioned, Shelley, this this trend we've seen in the real thing behind zero-click searches is the question you need to be asking is, did the searcher need to go to a website in the first place? And a lot of the times, if there's no clicks, well, the answer was no. And so that's part of providing a good experience, right? Is sending people where they need to be. And sometimes the query just didn't deserve 600 words of content. Sometimes it just deserved a quick snippet that they can get that answer and move on. And I think that SGE is going to be a powerful extension of that. That's going to disrupt a lot of different types of content. But I think that one of the things it's going to disrupt, and maybe I'll fall on my sword for saying this later on when as things expand and develop, is folks who are replacing their content process with AI right now, I think are going to get burned as SGE expands. And the reason for that is, why the hell would Google send a user to a website if that content was made with an LLM it already has access to directly in the SERP, right? So if an AI can write it for you, an AI can present it in Google. So what's the point of you being a website, right? And I think that's something that you want to think about as you're implementing AI tools into your content processes. It's what are you doing to either enhance the AI as you, or how are you using the AI to enhance your thoughts and your ideas? Because I think that's one of the truly powerful things about it, is it is going to enable a heck of a lot of wonderful, amazing, creative ideas that maybe needed a little help with the execution. It's also going to enable a heck ton of useless execution with no idea behind it, right? So which one are you and which one do you want to be?
That is a hot take. I'm into it. I love a spicy question. And that's really interesting. I mean, do you stand by that, even though, Google took written by people or written by humans out of its guidelines or guidance?
I stand So I stand by it because, like, I don't feel beholden to Google's guidance, and by that I mean, like, the trends that you see in Google implementing into its algorithms, users have been doing for a while, because the signals that Google uses, right, are they happen after the fact. They happen after it notices a trend about what users are doing. So if you're following trends of what users are doing, then you probably already know that people value um, opinions from people. The I mean, that's that's where I stand on that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use AI. Of course, it would be silly not to explore the potential of this incredible technology. But I think, to Shelley's point, of if you're using it to copy the same things you've already been doing, like a person using a computer the same way as a typewriter, then you're maybe missing out, and you might be just as left behind as someone who doesn't engage with the tool at all.
Yeah, and someone in the chat just said, wasn't there an issue with AI writers for Sports Illustrated recently? And then somebody else just asked a question, what about using AI for making pictures and videos? Well, it's funny because those two questions are actually in tandem, because if I understand the story correctly, yes, they did get caught using AI generated articles, like articles written by AI. But not only that, but they had writer headshots and bios that were headshots, like AI generated headshots. They were of, I think whoever discovered this, they found the headshots for sale on an AI generated image website. So I yeah, we had a little bit of fun in our Slack channel about that, didn't we, Ben? One of our marketing specialists asks if the AI could tell him why he will never know peace as a Carolina fan. And I did ask ChatGPT actually, but ChatGPT basically said, as a language model, I cannot answer that. So anyway, so it does have its limits.
And I think, like, that's a pretty clear line of ethics that you don't need an AI to solve, right? Is there content that you can make with AI in an ethical way? Absolutely. Are people going to get mad if you create content with AI in an unethical way? Mm-hmm. So I just feel like we need to be applying our human brains, and using AI and its abilities in ways that make sense,
Right.
and predicting the fact that people don't like being lied to. Like, I don't see how that's difficult for folks to understand.
Right. Right. And so, it's so funny because we're talking about the subject and the title of this webinar is the evolution of search for 2024. And it's like, I don't know, like we went, so it feels like almost we took this giant leap from SEO to AI, the ethics of AI. But the thing is, they're not mutually exclusive at all. And AI, as to Shelley's point, is one of those things that people are going to have to, not have in the back of their minds, but strongly have front of mind when you're thinking about the SERP and optimizing and ranking. So if I can just flip us to that last point, ranking factors, I'm curious, Shelley, what would you think is the top ranking factor to focus on in 2024?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, I actually wrote quite an extensive post about ranking factors recently, and just wrote another one about in response to something that Danny Sullivan posted on X/Twitter recently. Yeah. I think more than anything, for me, my top ranking factor is got to be high value, high quality content, but not just any content. It's content that appeals to your user, and I put the emphasis on your. As I said before, it's all about user signals. So it's about putting your user front and center of what you're doing. as Google said, made pages for users and not for search engines. Now, I can hear loads of people out there at the moment scoffing and choking and going, oh my God, quoting Google. But ultimately, it's not about just working. It's not about doing what Google says because Google tells us to do it. Google says what it does because Google really understands the web, and it understands content, and it understands search. And it's about actually creating things for the user. And this is what Google really gets. And this is what they've been advocates of, and they've been trying to push for so long. And it's what I'm a real advocate of as well, is creating really great content that is people first. This whole concept that Google's had for the past 20 years was people first content. And it's basic common sense. It's not that we should do this just because Google says it. It's because it works and it's what a user wants. It's about answering a query for a user. I would also say that user signals, as I said, really critical. And I think this is going to become even more important moving forward. And consider looking at usability and conversion. And I think this is going to be more aligned with what Google wants more than anything else. So if you're looking at like a combination of UX, content strategy, and technical SEO, the intersection across all those, I think this is where you can start to really build a robust and lasting SEO strategy. I think, if you look at EEAT, I think this is kind of a bit of a playbook that actually combines all these things together. So for me, the top ranking factor has got to be about ultimately moving away from this mindset of ranking and actually moving towards a mindset of user satisfaction. I think it's just common sense, really.
Yeah. And, I just want to, because Matt, we haven't had a chance to ask you a question yet, and we've covered so much, which makes sense because, as we led with, 2023 has been just, the year has just been absolutely bonkers in terms of all the new stuff that has happened in our industry. And so you've kind of been on the front line of catching it and reporting on it in both like an immediate way, but also sometimes, you've done a lot of executive interviews with influencers in the space and people who work behind the products that we're often optimizing for. So what is your take on all of this as somebody who has been covering the industry as a reporter?
Well, thank you for the question, Amanda. Yeah, well, my takeaway from that, when it comes to the major shifts in SEO priorities this year, the thing that stands out to me the most is sort of piggybacking off what Shelley said in creating good quality content. One of the ways that Google wants people to create content is from a firsthand perspective. One of the things you're going to hear a lot about next year, I believe, is firsthand content. That's going to be a big term that you'll hear a lot next year. So let me take a minute to explain what I mean by firsthand content and why that's become so critical. So this year, Google rolled out an algorithm update aimed at prioritizing pages demonstrating direct first-person knowledge and expertise. Google reasoned that it wanted results to showcase more unique personal perspectives and individual experiences relevant to the searcher's query, rather than just surfacing the same rewritten secondhand content that every site is publishing. So the impact of this change is already being felt across every website or virtually every topic and niche. We're seeing sites that incorporate authentic firsthand expertise and storytelling. We're seeing those ranking on the first page more often than the cookie cutter content that you used to see. It used to be that informational and news content recycled from other sources could rank just fine. But now Google's made it clear that firsthand knowledge and perspectives is a quality signal. And now content needs to demonstrate that direct experience to be competitive. And some examples that I've seen of websites doing this successfully, I've seen travel blogs written by locals that emphasize their personal recommendations. I've seen medical sites where doctors share case studies and insights from their practice. I've seen hobby sites showcasing the author's projects and lessons they've learned along the way. So anything that leans into showcasing true expertise versus broad content that could be written by anybody, that will have an edge in search next year and going forward. So for businesses, I recommend publishing blog and informational content written by you, your staff members, or people who actively use your products and services. While you're writing content, incorporate personal stories and behind-the-scenes examples that portray that first-hand knowledge. E-commerce sites can lean into things like user reviews and video testimonials and other direct customer perspectives. So the more you can spotlight actual experiences rather than generic descriptions, the better your content will be. On top of that, ensure that any authors are real and not AI generated. Make sure they have clear profiles highlighting their credentials and years of experience. Prominently display that information on posts or pages, because that signals to Google that this content is coming from a trusted source who's speaking from direct knowledge. And a good rule of thumb that I recommend following is show, don't tell. So when you're developing content, if you can demonstrate what you're describing through photos, a series of photos or instructional videos, if you can do that, actively showcase that hands-on expertise, then do that as much as you can. That's my biggest takeaway from all the changes this year. Good quality content written by people for people.
That is the jam. Cool. All right. So, Matt, I actually have some other questions for you, if you'll allow it. We're talking about your biggest takeaway, around some of the biggest changes that we've seen this year. And so regarding the biggest changes, you talked about the importance of writing for people. That seems to be sort of an underlying theme to our discussion here today. Is there anything else, or if you just want to expand on that, but is there anything else that you've seen the importance of it increase that maybe wasn't considered a priority 1 year ago today?
Yeah. Well, firsthand content is the most important thing. That's something we weren't even thinking of at the beginning of the year, really. We're high quality content for sure, but the firsthand perspective is not something that Google was emphasizing quite as much. So that's something that kind of grew in importance throughout the year. And that all ties back into EEAT, which is, I think we're talking about that more now than we did at the beginning of the year. Sourcing content is another, linking to respective credible sources, referencing facts, demonstrating where you got the information from, where the research came from. It's like you have to show your work more. It's kind of like back in high school, you don't just give the answer, show how you don't just answer the question, show how you got to that conclusion.
Oh, Matt, please don't take me back to high school math class. But in all we're editors, man. Like, come on. Well, not all of us, but in all seriousness, you mentioned EEAT. So what are some of, you're somebody who, at this point, I would like to think, I strongly believe you have quite a bit of expertise and authority in the area that you cover. So as somebody who does, what are some of your quick tips for demonstrating EEAT?
Yeah, sure. Highlight author credentials prominently on any article that you publish. Include author bios that summarize their educations, certifications, anything that's relevant to the topic at hand. Cite sources throughout your work. Whenever you're referencing facts or statistics, anything that people might question, where did that come from, or who said that, or where's the proof? Where's the source? Make sure that that question's answered. Make sure they don't have to ask that. Make sure the source is right there in the content. Emphasize hands-on expertise. make sure your website design instills trust overall. So a professional look with an easy navigation, secure checkout, that all creates a positive user experience. Make sure contact information is readily available and you're easily accessible, and there's transparency around who's behind the business, who works for it. Make sure the sources you're linking to are credible. Yeah, that all goes into building the EAT signals.
Right. And I realized, Matt, we skipped over you with the question about building AI. You know, we're talking a lot about the right ways to use AI. And so we skipped over you when we kind of were talking about that topic. And I'm just curious, you know, because we're, you know, while you work less on organic content and more on the news content, which is a little less evergreen, you know, there's still a certain amount of optimization to the work that you do. So I'm just curious, you know, can you tell folks if you've integrated AI into your workflow in a way that maybe makes you more productive, but doesn't compromise the quality and the editorial integrity that we've been talking about?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question. So as a reporter, I'm always looking for ways to boost productivity without compromising quality, because I have to get stuff out fast, but also I have to make sure it's accurate. And I have to make sure it's accurate and that I can back up what I'm publishing. So recently, I found it's incredibly helpful at accelerating research. So the most recent example, I was writing an article analyzing a judge's 50-page ruling on a high-profile Google antitrust case. And reading and digesting a document of that length would have taken me 2 to 3 hours. And on top of an already long day, how much of that information, even if I sat down and read the whole thing, how much of that information would I retain? So instead, what I did was I uploaded the PDF to an AI assistant, which you could use ChatGPT or the AI assistant of your choice. And I essentially put my reporter hat on and I interviewed it by asking specific questions about the judge's ruling. So the reasoning, the points made, and the conclusions. And the AI could rapidly parse that whole document and provide summaries of the information that I used. I took those summaries and then wrote the article in my own words. But that was instrumental in helping me pull out the key details in just a matter of minutes versus hours of reading. So, of course, I still carefully reviewed everything that it gave me to make sure it wasn't hallucinating. I just, did a Command F to make sure, I could find the text that it was referencing in the document. And if it was there, then, made sure everything was there. So the key to AI, using AI as a tool, is to identify where it can accelerate busy work without replacing accurate analysis and writing. So I see it as a productivity multiplier for initial research and not a writing shortcut. So when used appropriately, it can speed through it can really help you speed through the research process and help you get to creating that content faster.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I love using the LLMs as an article summarization tool. I was reading a very, very lengthy op-ed. It was lots of information of value in there, but and listen, this is coming as from a very loquacious person. All three of you know that. But this op-ed was too damn long. And so using the LLM to summarize it and point out, pull out the key points and the analysis it's such a helpful tool when there's so much information coming at you at once and you need to know what, and Matt, you contributed your favorite tool is Poe, because dumb question. But I swear fine. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So a question that I swear I am asking on behalf of everyone everywhere: is Poe an aggregate of different LLMs, just for folks who are watching?
Yeah, that's what it is. You can just pick and choose which one you want to prompt.
Cool. I love that for all of us. Ben and Shelley.
Sorry, Amanda, I was just going to jump in really quickly and actually say, because Matt, that's an amazing example that you've used it for. But one thing I just wanted to say is I've really struggled, and I just wanted to ask both of you, Matt and Ben, how you found it. When I've used ChatGPT for research, because what I do a lot of research, and every time I've tried to use it, I'm actually struggling to rely on the information I get back. So I can't really trust it. You know, for something randomly, I used it for so legislation to tell me a summary of some legislation in the UK. And I know this legislation very well, and it came back with incorrect answers. So my trust in it is quite limited. So I'd be really interested, just off the back of what you were saying, Matt, because I find your example really fascinating about the summary. But have you used it for actual research, and do you find it trustworthy for that?
You mean without supplying the initial text?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't feel confident doing
Yeah.
that without. It would probably take me long. I'd probably be researching everything twice, because I'd be researching through the tool and then verifying the research, and So I have the same issue you're having.
Yeah.
I also encountered the same issue. I was using, I think,
Yeah.
3.5 when I encountered this issue, so I can't speak to what it would be like now, because I haven't needed to do it again since I tried. But I fed it articles and tried to get it to help me write summaries, and it took just as long to correct the hallucinations as it would have been for me to just summarize the things my damn self. But I think that I may not have been using it optimally. I'm interested by, Matt, your idea of treating it like you're interviewing it, rather than just saying, give me the key points of this, right? You asking it more specific questions, giving it better prompts. That might have been my problem.
Yeah, I think Matt's example is just brilliant. I also just wanted to clarify that all the content that I write at SEJ, I've never used any AI to write that. So all our content is human written.
Yeah, no, we're pretty what is the word I'm looking for? We're pretty unabashedly firm on our editorial integrity when it comes to, you know, how we use AI. You know, it's so as they start to get more refined and more sophisticated, you know, these tools do become better at things like producing summaries. And in terms of the grain of salt that you have to take when using these tools for those purposes, I try to think of it in the broader context of finding information anywhere else, because as sophisticated as things like the featured snippet has become, and as sophisticated as things like SGE are becoming, sometimes it's still not always right or always the information that you're looking for. And even with something like how ChatGPT is integrated with Bing, and if you ask it a question like, who is so-and-so, a lot of the times it will be like, I'm checking Bing. You know, even without the LLM, even if you remove the LLM from that equation, we do have to fact check. You know, we can't just look at a result and be like, oh, okay, I learned something today. Now I'm smart. Yay. So, I mean, what did the three of you, what is your take on that in terms of, you know, it's, Shelley, you put it so perfectly. It's just the, what did you say? It's the featured snippet 3.0 or something?
Featured snippet. It's a featured snippet on steroids.
Yes, exactly. So is this just another sort of like due diligence of information seeking, you know, on steroids? What do all of you think?
What do you mean by due diligence?
Well, in terms of, you know, even when you're asking, you know, the LLMs for information or asking it to summarize an article, and it might get something wrong, you know, just as you would apply the due diligence to any other search for information using a search engine, you know, for instance, you would probably not just take it at face value, or you probably would take it at face value. So is this kind of just another iteration of that, of how we find and flesh out information?
So you mean how we're interacting with Google? You're talking about SGE in Google, right?
Well, I'm talking about, okay, I might be rambling a little bit. What I mean is that when we're using search engines to find information, and we get something like a featured snippet, in the SERP, we don't always just take that as like, yes, that is the correct answer, unless it's something like converting a cup to ounces or something, it's, you do have to do that due diligence. So are we just looking at now another platform where we are seeking information or seeking input on something, and we still have to do like that due diligence of information?
I see what you're saying, Amanda. Yeah, I think the issue we're up against, though, is we as professionals are using search on a daily basis, constant basis, and live our lives in SERPs and know it very well. We know this. We know that we shouldn't rely, but for the average user, the person who, you need to step out of yourself sometimes to realize what other people don't know. It's almost like we know too much information to actually understand what it's like for a novice using it. So for people, average users, they probably don't know that. They won't know that they need to do diligence. It's like, for example, the average user when with paid ads, the average user doesn't realize that paid ads are paid ads. They think they're just search results. So I think this is going to be part of the challenge for SEO, is what we're up against, is actually ensuring that, it's how the end user is going to be using it. It's not necessarily what we think, but how our audience is going to react to it. And, ultimately, they probably are going to believe it, and they're not going to be doing due diligence of it. So this is why it's going to be so important for us to, try and be part of the search generative experience panel. Somebody in the comment just said, I thought everything on the internet was true.
I do think that,
brilliant.
Who's gonna tell them?
I do think that part of it is going to be picking your queries, right? Because there are very clear search intents where people don't want a quick answer, right? And there's some prediction around that you can do. I'm sure that's a lot. You do that a lot, Shelley, I can imagine, where trying to understand what exactly it is someone wants. And I think that what we're finding, and what we're going to continue to find as we get more high profile stories about AI gaffes, is that people are going to be looking deeper, looking for verification. I think that the comment, I thought everything I read on the internet is true. It's funny, but it also speaks to a mindset that it's easy to underestimate, is that not everyone does trust the internet and the things they see in search. And so, building that trust and building that personal trust is as much as we may have struggles with getting noticed in generative AI search results and things like that. I think that it also provides us with opportunities to, when appropriate, build that additional layer of trust with an audience that is kind of sick of a lot of the way the internet works and may not like the direction that it's going. I think it's also easy to underestimate the number of people.
Ben, your sound cut out a little bit at the end there. Can you just repeat what you said at the end?
Oh, I said I think it's also easy to underestimate the number of people who feel that way.
Yeah, and you used a word, trust, and I have one more question to you, and then I want to start getting to some audience questions as well. Oh, also, Matt, somebody just did a special shout out to your cat. So yes, shout out to your cat. What is your cat's name? How long have I been working with you, and I don't know your cat's name?
Oh, the one that just made an appearance is Abby.
Oh, hello, Abby. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Abby.
Yes.
And I have a black cat named Ash.
Love that. Oh no, now people want to see the cat, and that's the key for a show. We're letting them down. I have a dog. I have a dog that's about the size of the cat, if anybody wants to see that, except he's walking away now. I think he's like, no, you're not paying me for this. Okay, sorry, I digress. One more question for you, Ben, and then I want to we have too much fun. I want to get to some of the audience questions. All right. So you said trust, and I'm going to make a really bad pun and turn to the topic of antitrust and search. So because, all right, I'm sorry. I'll see myself out. Bye, guys.
I refuse to answer the question.
You
based
broke
on
Shelley.
I also would just like to point out that the webinar chat is now completely about cats. Like, Ben, you have cats as well.
I have 3. It's too many.
All right.
Just a quick tip for anyone in the webinar chat. You might think 3 is fun, 3 is too many. 2 is fine, 3 is too many. Same with kids.
This is fast turning into an AMA about ask me anything about cats.
That's why I stopped at 2 kids. I learned with 3 cats that 3 is too many.
What even is this webinar now? Oh my God. I think everybody's like,
come on, Amanda, get control back quickly. Gain control.
We have officially ended our circle back in the new year era. But okay, really quickly, focusing on this year, focusing on antitrust and going back to SEO. When you said the word trust, it got me thinking about this antitrust suit that's been going on, or trial actually, and this idea of clicks. Do they or don't they matter? And we got some evidence that came up in that trial that talked a lot to that issue. And I know, Ben, you've been like kind of itching to talk about that. So what is your elevator or layover pitch about or talking points about the importance of clicks in 2024 search?
I've got a great elevator pitch for this. You ready? If you're an SEO, who cares? Listen, we talked about this in the Ranking Factors ebook quite extensively. I spent a long freaking time going back and forth and researching and getting lots of different opinions about what all this means, and like, oh my God, has Google been lying to us this whole time? Or other people being like, no, they told us this all along. And what does click data mean anyway? And what does a ranking factor mean anyway? And what I landed on is who cares. Now, why do I say that? Because what does that fundamentally change about what you're trying to do? If Google uses click data as a ranking factor, or in search, or in whatever way they're using it, right? Does that change that you should still be writing content that users like and engage with? No. Does that change the way you analyze user intent and the way you target keywords? I should hope not. If you're doing SEO in a forward-thinking way, looking toward the future of the trajectory that search engines are going, which is attempting to use further and further advancements in AI algorithms to approximate what humans want, right? That's the end goal of these algorithms, is to curate the kind of content that a human would want. And they don't know. They even admit, I think one of the slides is like, we're bad at analyzing documents, right? And so, but that's what the end goal of a search algorithm is at the end. It's a curation machine, and they're bad at it, but they're getting better. And so, sure, Google may be purposefully obtuse at our most generous way of putting it about the way they use click data, right? And yeah, I think that there's a conversation we can have about, what do you think about the ethics of that? What do you think about the functions of that? But in SEO, if you're doing SEO in the way that that a lot of highly thought of professionals in the industry, like for example, Shelley Walsh recommends, which is focusing on what it is that serves users and their needs, and understanding where they are in their journeys and how you can best help them, help them toward what you want them to do, help them all the same, then I don't think it changes anything. So that's my pitch. Who cares?
I care. I mean, I care about what you have to say, for whatever that's worth. All right, we are getting toward the tail end of our time together. It's been great. I want to get to some audience questions. I also, again, would just like to comment how much I had to scroll like up through all of the cat comments in the chat to get to the Q&A. So yeah, I think that's this is great. I love that we've been able to have fun with all of this, but also like talk about seriously valuable learnings and action items for next year. So without further ado, somebody had a question about the importance of backlinks. You know, and we've been talking about how maybe they have less importance now than they did, you know, in the decades between 2000 and 2022. So how important is link building in 2024? Someone wants to know. Any takers?
Oh, we're just throwing that out there. Okay, I'm just going to actually jump in because I'm going to tie that back a bit to what Ben was just saying about click data. And I mentioned earlier about user signals. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is I actually see user signals as one of the ways that Google is driving towards to actually alleviate some of the dependence on links. You know, links are a ranking factor. You know, there's no doubt about it. They still do. So I don't like using the term ranking factor. They will influence visibility in SERPs. And when it comes to links, as we know, it's all about relevance and authority of links, not just volume. But I do think that we are shifting and moving towards user signals, which incorporates click data. And I think that's going to become more and more important over the next few years. I think link building does still matter in terms of as long as it's relevant and topical. But I think you should also be looking at, as we keep saying, I think the overriding theme that we've all agreed on in this webinar tonight is it's about putting the user front and center, and it's about creating content for users, considering what the user's query is. And as Ben eloquently mentioned earlier, it's, you know, to do what the user wants and create content for humans, not for search engines.
Awesome. Any Matt, Ben, anything you wish to add to that?
I think link building is still you know, really important for content distribution and for for building authority signals. If you know, another authority in the space links to you, that's, you know, that's more credibility for you, and it's especially important for content that doesn't get a lot of visibility to begin with. If you know, link building is a way to get it out there. Even if you're just thinking beyond rankings, link building has value in and of itself. As long as as long as it's like real, genuine links and not you know, like bot spammy links. But if it's an actual person linking to you because it's good content, then there's value there, even if it doesn't directly lead to rankings.
I think that, like, you know, links, they're not like, I don't know that they'll ever like go away. But I think the fact remains that they're one of the last one, not, I won't say last, they're one of the places in ranking that is still very manipulatable, right? And Google, for a lot of types of links that Google technically considers spam, it hasn't quite worked out a way to properly detect them at all times. And so, you know, absolutely, I think Google has a reason to be winding down the impact of links. But was it you, Shelley, or was it someone else I was speaking to who mentioned that you know, algorithms aren't necessarily replaced, they're built on top of each other and iterated upon, and they get ever more complicated. So it's not that like links would go away, it's that the complexity gets to the point where it becomes less useful to focus on any one single measure of success.
Yeah, sorry. I talked about it. I'm really sorry. I've just got somebody who's just decided to use a vacuum right outside the meeting room. So I do apologise if there's any noise. It's just distracted me very slightly. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, when it comes to as you were saying, the sorry, Ben, I've completely lost my thread.
It's all
Matt,
right.
did you want to take this up?
I also have one more question if we want to move on. That's also an option. And we are at the top of the hour, but I did see one question in the chat that I would really love to get everybody's like 10-second answer to, if that's even possible. I feel like this is a great way to close out the conversation. Is it possible to create people-first content at scale?
Depends on the scale.
Do you care to elaborate on that, Ben?
I mean, I think that people first really means like what exactly it is that people need, right? So if you're targeting people who need to buy something, then sure, you could pretty easily create some high scale content to help them. But if you're targeting people who aren't like ready to buy right now, then it starts to get harder and harder to create content that suits their needs, especially if you're working at a high scale. You know, speaking as someone who builds ebooks, it takes a lot of work and thought and empathy to build products that people are willing to exchange their time and information for. And I think that there is a point at which the scale will prevent the nature of a content that's people first. But I think the point that is depends on what your use case is and where you're trying to reach your users.
Matt, Shelley, any final thoughts on that before we?
Oh, I was just going to just to counter that. I think that producing content at scale is, it works really well. For example, if you're producing scaled content in, say, the travel industry, where it's very you've got to create a lot of pages based around different areas. AI actually can work really well for that. In terms of replicating out and building out a lot of pages very quickly across a lot of different locations. And there are certain examples where content at scale can work, but is that necessarily content for people? Possibly not. And I think my opinion is I don't really believe you can create content at people first content at scale, really good quality content. And my position has always been I only produce really high quality content. I am not a person who will do something at scale. I like to focus on the high quality. So for me, I'm going to have to say I wouldn't personally produce people first content at scale. That's my opinion.
Yeah, somebody in the chat actually asked, would you want to produce
no,
or why would you want to produce people first content at scale? And the answer seems to be kind of like, maybe you wouldn't,
What do you think, Matt?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible without compromising quality. I was thinking about it in my head, like what kind of content could you produce for people at scale? And I was thinking, well, maybe if you're reporting on sports scores, you can automate that sort of thing. But then I'm thinking you wouldn't really get much analysis of the game. You wouldn't get any kind of like human insight into it. You just kind of get the raw numbers. So it wouldn't be good content. So the more I think about it, the more I think that that's not good quality content.
Well, that seems like a good place to close out our conversation. I hope everybody will join us for our next webinar, Cats, the webinar. The longest running webinar on the internet. No, I'm kidding. I hope I didn't, get people too excited about a webinar that's not actually happening. Oh, sorry, Kirsten, I'm sorry. But thank you so much to everybody who joined us today for this discussion. I just want to point out also something that I've been observing in the chat is that people are exchanging questions and answers and ideas and suggestions with each other as well. And in addition to the answers that we got from our remarkable panelists today, it's been so great to see this webinar community sort of forming in real time while we're having this conversation. So thank you everybody who is participating in this conversation for really making it a group activity. Thank you again to our fabulous panelists. And I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday season and a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.